My name is James Keats. I'm apparently the only post-human alive who's still capable of having nightmares. And I don't know why.
Posthuman, the short film, basically is the 5 minutes that would be at the beginning of the Posthuman feature film, which we are hopefully going to be filming one day. Basically, it starts with a day in the life of James Keats, who is my character. It's sometime in the future, and nanobots have been invented. Basically, they have been implanted in everybody's bodies, and they give everybody special abilities. One, you can fly, you can breathe in outer space based on having sort of a force field around you. There's so many cool things that the nanobots do, and one of the very basic things that they do, which they have iPhone apps that do for you now, is they wake you up at a specific time where you know that your REM sleep has been perfect, and then you wake up with a fantastic sleep, good dreams. But it turns out that James Keats has nightmares, which is something that nobody in the world has anymore based on just this technology. And he wakes up from a nightmare like he has on many other days next to his wife, Catherine, who chooses not to wake up with him at the same time because she's not very happy with him. And there are certain reasons that she's unhappy with him. He hasn't been unfaithful, but she thinks what he's done is almost worse. And I don't want to give too much away because all we've done is the 5-minute proof of concept. And I hope that people watch the movie, and I hope also people choose to read the amazing books, which I've only recently come into contact with when I became included in the project, and I love the book, so I don't want to take that away from any of the people watching.
The Posthuman short film is about the first 20 or so pages of the Posthuman novel. So it takes place in the future where our bodies are enhanced by something called NAN. So we have really cool abilities like the ability to fly, the ability to put a force field around ourselves, and the ability to connect with everybody on the web, but you're constantly connected. So the downside of that is that if some of your thoughts, for example, if somebody is extremely aroused by another person, their partner is alerted. So that's the issue that's going on in this particular section of Posthuman. So James Keats was aroused by another woman, and his wife, Catherine Keats, who I play, isn't very happy about getting that notification. So she's upset with him. They're having a very difficult time in their marriage.
This isn't Catherine's fault. We're both prisoners of the same situation. The same world. She's a good woman. I love her. I never would have hurt her, and I think, on some level, she knows that. But what can she do? We both live in a world that monitors us from the inside out.
She loves James, or they did love each other at some point, but because she was alerted that he was aroused by someone else to the point that he could have cheated on her, she has a hard time loving him and interacting with him. So she's a very heartbroken woman. Well, I saw an ad for the project, and it was very detailed, and I looked into the books a little and saw how popular they were, and thought it was such an incredible opportunity that I happened to come across. And I sent in my pictures and my resume, and then I met with David and Jenny, who made this film, and it was like right away they seemed really passionate about me and really excited about me, and we're talking about how excited they were about Madison, and just their passion alone and how they described the character in the film made me want to become a part of it.
I'd say the thing that got me interested in this project was David himself. I met David at a Starbucks out by the university here in Vancouver, and immediately he showed off how much of this project meant to him. It was such a beautiful sort of moment of a man explaining his vision and what he wanted from the movie that he wanted to make. He wanted to make it for his fans. Posthuman and David himself has amazing fans out there that read his books, and what he wants is a demonstration of what that can be in film. He wasn't able to find that. He wasn't able to find someone to make exactly what he wanted, and it was almost difficult for him to to go about releasing his baby because he knew it wasn't going to be exactly what he wanted to be. So then he decided to do it himself.
I've had a lot of success in my career by boiling things down to their fundamentals. I'm a big believer in first principles of like in physics, and I think you can apply that to most things. So whenever I'm dealing with a problem, I just boil things down to what are the fundamentals of this. And so with filmmaking, when you really think about it, the fundamentals are you need a camera and you need a setting, and then you need actors to inhabit that setting, and that's really all you need. I mean, you don't even actually need a script because the actors could improv everything. I recommend a script, but technically you don't need it. You just need to deal with those other foundations. And then anything else that you bring is something that you bring that's tailor-made for your individual project. And so when you start to think about it that way, it seems a lot less daunting. So for me, I had to knock down, before I did anything else, those three foundations. And so the first one was camera. So I'm a technology person, obviously, writing science fiction, and I'm a big believer in Moore's Law for sure. I mean, you don't believe in Moore's Law, it's just a fact that information technology is doubling in price performance every 12 to 18 months. So that's pretty exciting, especially in this new era of digital filmmaking. But I had worked with a couple of small production companies here in Vancouver, and they were looking at using the tools that professional productions these days usually use for digital filmmaking, and so they were looking into Reds and Arri Alexas, and I was astounded by the price of the technology and how cumbersome the technology was as well, and that you couldn't really own these cameras. They were so expensive that it was cost prohibitive, so you had to just rent them. And to me, that seemed that it would cause an issue when it came to becoming proficient with the cameras, and then you end up needing a director of photography. And so I was interested in whether or not I could actually own one of the cameras, and I started to look into them to learn as much as I could about them. And I was looking at comparisons between a lot of digital film cameras that are really professional grade. And what I kept seeing in the comment sections of these reviews and comparisons was a lot of people talking about this Blackmagic camera, which I'd never heard of before. And I looked into it myself and saw there was a huge difference in price. I mean, it's laughable. Blackmagic cameras can be 1/50th or 1/100th in some cases the price of these other cameras with similar size sensors. So I was very intrigued by this because it seemed as though there was one company that had already, it was like a company from the future. They had already made this technology affordable, and it was something that the masses could get their hands on. But of course you wonder, is it too good to be true? So my wife and I actually started to do a lot of research specifically on the different models of Blackmagic cameras, and we were looking at Vimeo, and we were looking at Shane Hurlbut is really good. He's a director of photography that looks into all of these different types of cameras, and we saw that the camera was holding up really well against the best cameras out there. So we had the potential of actually buying a camera outright. Especially for us, we were very interested in the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera because it was less than $1,000, about the same as a rental fee for one of these other cameras. And if I could own it outright, I could test it. I could become proficient with it myself. I could try out different lenses and different filters and different stabilizing equipment. And that's exactly what I did. We got the Blackmagic, and after watching lots of reviews for it, and we tried some different lenses, and we did some tests. And lucky for us, there was another lens that had just come on the market, another affordable, really, really great lens. And this was the Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter lens. This one did, the wider stuff just as well as the Rokinon did, but it didn't have that fisheye look on the close-up. So we had the tools we needed at that point. The next thing we looked into was stabilization. We grabbed a a glide cam, which was really important. We used it a lot. We have a slider. So when you look at the proof of concept and you see those gorgeous slider shots, that's the result of having that slider. And I did have a body mount that we used a little bit, and then also 2 tripods to both hold the slider up and then also just for our fixed camera position shots when we were doing, medium range close-ups. And we also had a Metabones smart lens adapter that we put on the Blackmagic, which was fantastic because that allowed us to let in a lot of light. And it made us really lean and mean on our shooting day because we didn't require any lighting. Everything was lit by these gorgeous floor-to-ceiling windows. The setting was just an incredible setting.
I liked it more than anything I've ever done because it was such a small group of people, but all of us were so passionate about it. And we kind of set out to do the impossible to film the short film in 3 hours. And we were all excited. Some of us hadn't gotten any sleep. And we got there and we just made something incredible anyway, even though it seemed to be against all odds.
When I first heard David's concept of his way of filmmaking, I wouldn't say it was impossible. I would put it as a different approach. It was really new. It was so simple. It was get a film idea, get equipment, get location, shoot, and post-production. That was it. But that was so easy, right? Just saying it, that's so easy. I didn't know it was gonna. As I said, I wouldn't say impossible. It was just different. It was a new, unique approach to filmmaking. And if I think about future filmmaking, I think this is the best approach for new or independent or young filmmakers who wouldn't have the same budget or anything.
Settings are very, very important. And for us, what was really important was getting a setting that very realistically or believably could be a post-human-esque setting. So with the post-human series, we're talking about a future that is actually really utopian on the surface. It is beautiful. It is a world of nanomolecular assemblers, and what that means is, if you're not familiar with that, is it would be like 3D printers but on steroids. So anything that you could dream up and create in a digital world could be built for you. And what that would mean in practical terms was that the post-human people, everybody would be able to live really in what today is considered opulence. So we needed a setting that was believable for our lead characters to wake up in. If you could live in your dream home, what would it look like? And it turned out that there was somebody in West Vancouver who really had that kind of home. He was an elderly lawyer here in town who had this gorgeous, gorgeous beach house. He actually had a mansion up on the hill just around the corner that actually just barely manages to make it into some of the shots as well. But he was very kind to us. He let us have his beach house, but there was a big catch. And the first thing was that the set had been used for other Hollywood productions before, and we weren't even a Hollywood production. When I first approached him, he thought we were. But because he was used to having Hollywood productions there, he was used to crews of 300 people. I mean, even for a Canadian television show, 300 people show up, because that's the traditional way of doing these kinds of things. And so he said it'd be $25,000 a day, which he probably thought would scare me off. And it did. I couldn't have afforded that. But because he was so kind when he answered my email, I thought, you know what, I'm going to write back to him. And so I wrote back and I said, it looks like it's about $1,000 an hour. We can be in and out in 3 hours. So how about $3,000 for 3 hours? And I actually heard back from his assistant about a day afterwards, and the response was, are you seriously telling us you can be in and out of the location in 3 hours? And they couldn't believe it, because what they told us in person when we met them was that productions always get out later than they're supposed to. They always run overtime, and there's often damage because there's so many people there. But I told them the crew it'll be me, it'll be my wife, and it'll be an NYU film student. We're gonna have just 3 actors on set, and that's it. And we're not gonna have any lighting, and our equipment would be really small and easy to set up, and yes, we can be out in 3 hours. So being lawyers, they were very clever. They wrote a contract that said that if I was out later than 3 hours, that it would be an extra $1,000. So that was my motivation. So it was like you're looking at a stopwatch, while you're filming. It was a rush. It was a rush to do that. I mean, I can barely remember it. I was literally running between shot setups. This is the truth. We got about 30 shots. I think in the final film there's 18 or 19 shots, but there was more that we ended up editing out, probably a minute and a half of film. So there were setups that didn't actually get in. So I mean, people are impressed when they watch the proof of concept and they see that we did it in 3 hours. But if you saw how much we actually filmed, you'd be even more impressed. And that just comes from having the right equipment and thinking about it in a very different way. And because our setting was so picturesque and perfect, it was actually designed by one of the most famous architects in Canada. His name is Arthur Erickson. It really did look like the future. It looked like, because this lawyer had really lived very much like people will be able to in the future. I mean, he was able to design this place with Arthur Erickson, and then they were able to build it. Of course, it took them years to do it, and you'd be able to do these things in a very short period of time in the future, but the end results were very similar, and it just brought a level of believability that's really incredible. And one of the things I love is when I hear the comment that, it's really well lit. They did a great job with the set. It's really well lit. And really all we did was just walk in and set up the cameras. Yeah, it was something. The third foundational element that you need if you're going to make a really good film is actors. And if I'm being completely honest, I got really, really lucky. We got incredible actors. So one of the things I'd recommend is live in New York, live in LA, or live in Vancouver like I do. If you live in one of these film and television capitals, you're going to live places where there's a lot of talent and a lot of acting talent and a lot of undiscovered acting talent if you really look. Obviously, I couldn't possibly have afforded or attracted a A-list Hollywood actor for this proof of concept, but I believed it was possible to, if I worked hard enough and looked hard enough, that I could find actors that had that kind of talent and presence. And amazingly, I did it. We found 2 actors who were professional union working actors. The first one was Madison Smith, who plays James Keats. He had been in Supernatural. He was recently in Legends of Tomorrow. He was in Psych. He's been in feature films before that were independent feature films. He's a trained actor, but he just hadn't had a lead role yet, despite the fact that he obviously looks like a leading man, obviously fits the character of James Keats extremely well.
Madison he's an amazing actor. It was really cool because we had known each other before from school. I was in the class after him at the acting school that we both went to. So I already knew him. I knew that he was still working. And when I was shown the image of what James Keats was supposed to look like according to David, I saw Madison right away. And I was like, wow, what a perfect casting job. So I was really excited to work with him. And Madison is so passionate about what he does. He loves acting probably more than or as much as anyone I know. And he knows everything about movies and the film industry. And it's so wonderful to work with somebody who has such a love for it.
The second time lightning struck was with Bridget Graham. Bridget Graham is just a genius, and she is just a wonderful soul. She is probably more impressive for how kind she is than she is for anything else, and that's saying something because she's gorgeous and she's a very talented actor. As far as I'm concerned, she's got the same sort of ability as somebody like Olivia Wilde. That was something we were saying a lot, and that's not to take anything away from Olivia Wilde. That's to just point out how incredible Bridget is and how lucky we are that we got her. Because to have an actor like that on our set who could just nail anything that we gave her. I mean, Bridget nails it on the first take, and then she asks you if, do you want that even better? And she can do it, which is really, really incredible.
Well, my co-star, her name is Bridget Graham, and she is phenomenal. It was actually quite an amazing experience because I found out that Bridget was cast, and she was actually showing up to rehearsal day, and I immediately told David that I actually knew Bridget already. We went to the same acting school a year apart, so it was a great little experience to find out that, hey, a person that I know, a person that I see working, and a person that I'm excited to see again is going to be working with me on this. She is fantastic as Catherine. We have one time in the short film where we converse, and it's to a point a fight, and I remember that day in rehearsal was a fun one to do because we had to make it seem like we weren't angry at each other. It was more of a disappointment, which I think is what real couples do. And to have that day of rehearsal was such an important thing because we got to play with the levels of how much are we angry, how much are we hurt, how much are we sorry, how much do we think that the other person should forgive us. And you can't do that with an actress who you don't feel comfortable working with, and I 100% felt comfortable working with Bridget.
Well, my hope is that it's made into a movie after this, and then several movies, and we can make a movie for maybe every book in the series if that's possible, because it's such an incredible book, and it's so detailed and such an interesting world that David has created. And when you read it, you see a movie. It's just one of those books where you're like, this has to be a movie. And I think that there's a huge audience for it. Even for people who aren't particularly interested in sci-fi, I think that they'd still love it. So hopefully we can just make as many movies as possible and show them to as many people as possible.
I hope that this movie gets made. I would love to be the person who brings James Keats to life, is the avenue for the audience to learn about this world. But more than anything, I want David's story to be told, because the amount that you'll learn from the proof of concept is that it's a cool, amazing world that they live in. However, if you read past the first 20 pages, which is about where we're at after the proof of concept, you get introduced to such a conflicted world with so many anti-heroes and different characters, bad guys, good guys, people that you had no idea existed. It's such a fun, amazing book that it's one of those books that you can't help but see a movie while you read it. So I really want a movie to be made. My
goals for Posthuman have always been to see it as a series of films. I'd like it to be a franchise of films. I think Posthuman is really important, not just as a film series, but because of what it can do for the world. Posthuman really depicts a future that is coming. unlike some of the other series that are very, very popular and lucrative, they're in Hollywood from the 60s and 70s that, kind of get rebooted. Posthuman takes into account the accelerating pace of information technology and how close we already are to having superhuman level machine intelligence. So strong artificial intelligence, and it's really close. It'll happen in our lifetimes, and I think we have to be aware of it. But at the same time, Posthuman is it's a story, it's a narrative, and I think one of the best ways to provoke thought in people is to have a really exciting story.
When I first got involved with this project, I had no idea that it was going to look as professional as it did, because I've done indie movies before, I've done short films before, but I had no idea that, I didn't know about black magic, I didn't know it could do such incredible things, and I had no idea that David and Jenny had kind of hacked the film industry the way they had, and just learned how to do everything on their own without as much equipment, without as much money, without a big crew. So I would get involved in more projects that used the black magic for sure, because I had no idea. I always thought I wouldn't get something that was that good of quality until I was on set doing something really professional, until I was doing something Hollywood.
Well, one of the coolest things too is Posthuman has opened a lot of people's eyes to the ability to make films with a low budget, with not a huge amount of crew. You have the ability to make these movies, and the way it's been looked at a lot is in filmmaking, and it should be. It's a thing that more filmmakers can make their movies.
Yeah. Definitely.
But the thing that I think doesn't get talked about is how much of a avenue it gives us actors. Like if Posthuman was going to be a movie that was going to be a major feature film, there's no conversation in which my name gets put in. There's no talk in which, what about Madison Smith?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, for this movie.
It's amazing how close we come to Hollywood standard with such affordable equipment. Just have giant sensors that you can just basically see in the dark, and you can just get it, with one paycheck basically, and just go and film it yourself is amazing. So I hope that more filmmakers out there do that.
Acting is like any job. You need experience to get experience, and unfortunately the experience in low quality short films isn't what big studios are looking for. So if I was in an indie movie that was filmed horribly, even if my performance was okay, they wouldn't take me seriously. But with something like Posthuman, it gave me and Madison the opportunity to be in something that is so professional, that's so beautiful and has a following, but we didn't have to have the big credits that they usually look for something like that. So it's just the biggest opportunity. It's the best thing that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
Digital film technology, the affordable digital film technology, and the incredible camera equipment, and the affordable VFX software are creating a perfect storm where a new generation of young filmmakers can prove to themselves that they can make anything they want. Any dream that they have, they can bring it to the screen and in a sense make it a reality. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a feature film. I'd have to be dead or incapacitated for us not to have a feature film. We will have a feature film. I guarantee it. I greenlit myself.